Hi guys, this is MARLO MARTOS of HMT Studio and you're listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast. Mabuhay!
Hello everybody, my name is Ian Taylor and welcome to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, brought to you by the Marvel Cards Fan Collective, an awesome community of card collectors and creators. You can find our two groups on Facebook, details of which are at the end of this podcast, so come check us out. With me as always is my co-pilot in all things Marvel cards. He went to a card show yesterday, brought all the surfers, and now his Pelican case is fuller than it should be. It's Norrin Rad.
Wow, that was good. I mean, see, Ian always undersells these before the shows because I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm stressed. I don't think it's going to work, man. I don't know if we can come up with this. And then about 30 seconds in, he's like, wait, I have it. And then we start the show. And it's always good.
It is good. It is good.
I like it.
It was kind of in honor of our guest today.
Hell yeah.
And I'm not going to around any longer. I'm going to introduce him. We have with us on the show today an extraordinary young man that some of you might have heard of. Maybe most of you won't. But you should do, because he is a sketch collector extraordinaire. Welcome, Matt Fuller.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
Fantastic. Beautiful Sunday morning here.
Beautiful Sunday morning. It's Easter. It's Easter Sunday as we record. Do you do the egg thing?
My youngest now is 15, so they just like candy in a pile when they wake up. That's it.
Okay.
They don't like the hunt anymore.
Fair enough.
Cutting out the middleman.
And they'll sleep till about 2 o'clock, so yeah, they have plenty of time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you've got hours yet until they're awake then. I remember sleeping till 2 o'clock. I also remember naps.
Naps.
My wife can nap. I just can't do it anymore.
I used to be able to before we had my little girl, but yeah, sleep kind of goes out the window when they're that young, as I'm sure you'll remember, Matt.
Oh, sorry. That reminds me. In about 30 minutes, I do have to take a nap. So if you guys can just, if we can just keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
We can do that.
I didn't mean to. Just so we know.
To be fair, you sometimes do during episodes anyway, and no one ever notices. So you probably could have got away with that.
Well, no one ever notices until now. So thanks a lot, Ian. So
that's quite all right. I'll happily out you. So Matt,
I drew these open eyes on my eyelids for no reason, obviously. So.
Yeah, because the matchsticks don't hold them anymore. Matt, are you? So for those who don't know, Matt is also. Up until when did you start, Matt, being a moderator in the two groups that we run? Was it about 3 months ago now?
Yeah, it's right at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. So we've obviously spoken a heck of a lot more over text and messages and things like that since that happened. And it occurred to me that I kind of don't really know you that well. I know Norrin and you have spoken before, and you've done various Zoom kind of collector chats and things like that, which I've not been able to partake in simply because of time zones and stuff. So I thought it'd be quite cool to just speak to you and find out what you're about and have folk hear about what you collect. And I guess best place to start is what's your kind of origin story? What do you collect and how did you get there? And
absolutely. A lot of it's gonna, 90 episodes into the podcast, you've heard a lot of this story before from other collectors who are about the same age. But, I grew up reading comics in the 70s and early 80s. And even right from the beginning, I was not just a fan, I was a collector. My father was a coin collector. Even as like a 5-year-old, I was a rock collector. And they weren't very good. Like they're literally rocks in the backyard, but it was something to collect. But then once I discovered comics, it was all over at that age. I grew up at the time, it was Claremont and Byrne on the X-Men. And that's really just what grabbed me. I mean, I read a lot of other books at the time, but those were the stories that really got me. And between Byrne's art and later some Ramada art after that, it just hooked me right in. And then I remember probably around age 12, so that was probably 83, there was this spin-off of the X-Men called the New Mutants, and that's really the one that sort of set me up as a Marvel fan for life. I think the characters, what they were going through, I think any kid who collected comics in the 80s absolutely felt like a mutant to other kids because it was definitely not cool at the time. So it just really resonated. And then, I think the whole market quickly changed. So just as quickly as I became a fan, comics sort of died to me. And I can even trace it back to the specific event. My comic store locally, I swear the guy was a failed stockbroker, but he was one of those really salesy comic book guys. He's this guy in his 30s, and he hung around with 15-year-olds at a comic store all day and drove a Trans Am. That tells you all you need to know. He was quite the guy. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had come out, and it was huge. Even then, the prices were skyrocketing. And he sold myself and my friends on the next big thing. This was guaranteed, couldn't miss investment opportunity. So we all plunked down tons of money on this famous book. I'm sure everyone still has a copy and has it framed. It was called Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters.
What?
I don't know if you guys remember that. Basically, at the time, there was this whole spin-off genre from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where it was adjective, 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 animal. And there must have been 20 or 30 of them that came out in this 1 year time. And, looking back, it turns out that was just sort of the whole comic glut at the time. People were speculating, prices were going up, and then just as suddenly it crashed. And it happened around the time I was 16 anyways. So, all of a sudden it was about girls anyway. So comics just sort of went away, and I really didn't collect much for the next 20 years. And again, as so many other people have sort of said in that time frame, then all of a sudden, I'm 35, I've got 2 young kids and some disposable income. And one of the things I wanted to do was I had all these comics from a kid. I had X-Men. At the time, I purchased it all the way back, so I had issue 1. I had the full run, and it was just sitting there, and I still wasn't really into it. So I rented a table at a local card show to go and sell them, and I did. But I made the mistake of walking around the card show, and I found a guy selling Star Wars autographs, and all of a sudden I bought some and I was hooked. So as far as cards, I was an autograph collector first and foremost. And I went full ham, as you guys like to say. I had at one point, I had every Star Wars autograph except Lucas and the composer Williams. I had all of the Harry Potter from, I want to say there must have been 10 sets at that point. Buffy, Angel, Works. I had so many of them. And then I started getting into some of the new shows that came out at the time, Game of Thrones, Walking Dead. Some of them I still have, and they're framed up. But what really caused my pivot was I was getting the Lord of the Rings autographs. And that was a movie that I love the trilogy, and I watch it religiously every year. And I had mainly been purchasing through dealers or eBay, and at one point I was like, you know what, I want to crack some of my own. So I bought some boxes on eBay, and I actually bought one by accident. I bought a box of Lord of the Rings Masterpieces 2 from Chops, which turns out it didn't have autographs, but what it did have were sketch cards. And even though it's Marvel, I'm going to show you this because this is the card that started all of my troubles.
Oh, nice.
I pulled this sketch card, and it was my very first one. And immediately in my head, I said, you know what? That looks literally just like a scene from the movie. I could see myself using this card to make a storyboard of the movie. And so I literally one card, and I've already planned out this whole thing.
A true collector.
The way my brain works is that is exactly what I did. And I spent the next 10 years, I sold off every single autograph I owned, other than a few that are framed still, just because it would be too much of a pain to take them apart. And I started collecting Lord of the Rings sketch cards. And I do have a couple posts on BlowOut where I actually did exactly that. I had a screenshot from the movie with the actual the script, and then I would put the sketch card next to the picture. And I did that for the first 2 films. I never got around to doing it for the third, just because they must have been 100, 200 hour investments, just taking the time to capture every image and put it next to it. So it was a lot of work. And then Marvel came about truly only as a way to have trade bait to get Lord of the Rings cards from people who also collected Marvel. I thought, hey, you know what? I'll be able to, get some out of them, because they don't want cash. They don't want other Lord of the Rings cards. They were saying, if you have Marvel cards, I'll trade them. And I started down that path. And then there were, again, another card or two. And, I still remember this is the Marvel card that I had pulled that changed for me.
Sick.
Because as soon as I saw it, it brought me back to that specific storyline with Kitty and the Brood in the X-Men, and it's a Bronze Age card, and that whole nostalgia kicked in, and all of a sudden I started buying Marvel sketch cards to collect instead of for trade bait, and now I have probably twice as many Marvel cards as I do Lord of the Rings. So I've got these dueling passions between these two, between Middle-earth and Marvel. It just absorbs so much of my time. And there have been others along the way, but in the last few months, I've decided, you know what, I can't spread myself too thin. So I've just about finished selling off I had a pretty substantial Rick and Morty sketch collection. That's almost done. Working on getting rid of some Walking Dead and Adventure Time. And I'm just going to focus on Middle-earth. Right. To the tune of a lot of sketch cards. So.
Wow. So how many? Because I know that there's one way to describe it. The
Easter. That's amazing, man.
What I've seen some pictures that have kind of made my jaw drop just in terms of the volume. How many would you say? In fact, you're very organised. You probably know down to the exact number.
I do. Once I'm down to just Marvel and Lord of the Rings, I will have just shy of 10,000 sketches.
Holy. And that'll be bleeped out. Oh my goodness me. Norrin's on the floor.
God, man.
And I think Nora knows. In 2020, I made the decision to trim back my Marvel collection, and I decided to sell 25% of what I had. So at one point, I think in 2020, I sold a little over 2,000 Marvel cards to get to where I am now. And I sold, some good ones, but in my head, I basically sat down one day and said, all right, I'm going to go through this and I'm just going to do a quick judgment. If I look at it and say, I don't care, it goes in the sell pile. And that's sort of what I did. And, I'm much happier right now with what I have. I think it's much more focused on what I like in terms of artists and characters. Yeah. And then even at the end of 2020, I decided to focus even more, where I said, outside of maybe 5 artists, I am only going to collect mutants from this point forward. That's really going to be my focus, since that's where the passion has always been.
I remember us having that conversation because I forgot, it was a while now ago, but I was doing the same thing on a very small scale, comparatively. And Ian and I have spoken about this too, but there is something. It's funny. Okay, so bringing this out a little bit, it's funny because I was just talking to somebody about sketch cards, and they were asking me, they're like, will sketch cards become, the hot ticket item for a lot of people since more people are getting into Marvel? Will people start recognizing, the the good stuff, the sketch cards, the one of ones, the things by artists, and the uniqueness. And I was like, it's a shame, but I don't think so. And the reason I said that was because a lot of the really older sketches from older sets, those are from collectors that do massive sketch collection sets, right? They want every artist, they want it in particular order, similar to Marvel Legends, right? Sketch cards in Marvel Legends is part of the set. So to collect the set, you need to do one of each sketch card and get all these kind of things. And it's a shame, but because so many of them are kind of squirreled away, it's hard for people to know. So when people come into Marvel cards and they look at Nar, they look at Rancho, they look at, Warner Dre, they look at all these great artists that we know and are super awesome, they have no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes. You know what I mean? And it forces people, it doesn't allow people to explore those other sets and those sketch cards and to let them kind of get bigger. So when I was looking at sketch cards and stuff a long time ago, prior to this and all this stuff, looking for surfer sketches is near damn impossible. It's funny because Ian and I always have the same trouble because Black Cat is so desirable as a character, especially in Spider-Man, that she's kind of, that her sketches are always held when they're usually picked up, similar to Surfer, because there's not a lot of him. But I was talking to Matt, and Matt was like, you know what? I need to focus this up. I want to do this. I want to get these collections. And Matt's obviously a true collector, the true definition of a collector. He sees something of a project that he can make, and he goes all the way with it. And I remember him selling off some of these pieces that he has. And I mean, they're gorgeous. I mean, even the pieces he parted with, honestly, I have a Surfer that Matt was so gracious enough to sell me. He told me the price. I was like, yep. I mean, I didn't even say shit. I was like, you're right. Whatever you want, take it. And it's top 5, one of my favorite Silver Surfers I have. And I'm extremely grateful for it. But these things are really rare and these sets are really hard. And when you start collecting one of ones like Matt has, that's a long life passion, man. You can hear how you went through all these different sets and all different tribulations and everything you've had to go through. It's just insanely cool, the different routes you've gone.
Yeah, you make a great point about some of the older sets. Even until recently, I never got a really good glimpse into like MCC 98. Some of the, even 2007, 2008, it's really hard to see a lot of the best ones because, as you say, a lot of the collectors from that era, and I think part of it is because of the competition, so I completely understand why, but they just don't care to share them online. And it is a shame because some of them are just stunning, and you really, since Rittenhouse, everything has been full color, which is wonderful, don't get me wrong. But when you see what some of the artists were able to do with just a pencil, Norm, you and I have talked about this. I think collectors would go gaga over just a pencil set, especially if you could use that as an excuse to bring back some comic artists, some of the famous ones, and mix them in, and kind of I think that would be a great showcase for a lot of the modern artists that we love as well, to have that interspersed and to be able to see what they do side by side with some of those classic ones.
Mm-hmm. Because there's definitely two types of artists now, right? You have people who are sketch artists, and then you have people who are comic book artists drawing sketches. You know what I mean? There's a very interesting two pools of sketch card artists in there for sure. Sorry, Ian. Go ahead, brother.
No, that's all right. All I was going to say was some of my favorite Black Cats are just ink. Just black ink line work. Mike S. Miller is the one that springs to mind. And, I'm lucky enough to have a few of us. I say lucky enough because, I've always had to kind of reach and overspend a little to get just the ones I've got because, she's a popular character and, there's some pretty big collectors who go after the high-end artists. So, nicely curated by virtue of financial means, I think is the best way to phrase my collection. But it's interesting, Matt. With the volume of sketches that you have, I've seen you gradually paring it back, and some of the stuff you've been like paring back has been like top shelf stuff, in my eyes. So, but yeah, that kind of speaks to the breadth of your collection, for starters. Do you? So you kind of got to the point where you've now kind of focused. Do you look on that as the latest turn in your collection, or do you think back on that kind of 20 years of doing this and then switching to this and switching to this as your journey to where you are now, or do you think of this as just the latest twist?
No, I think it's always been part of the journey. Like, I've got a spreadsheet where I have each character and the number of cards. And even before I made that turn, mutants, of my top 25, I want to say 20 were mutants anyways. So they're the characters I've always gravitated towards, regardless. Some, surprisingly, I was a little shocked when I did the numbers. I mean, he's a mutant, and I love him, but I swear, Cyclops to me is just milquetoast. He's so boring so much of the time. And somehow he's my number either 3 or 4. It's like, why? How did this just happen? But as I dug deeper, because again, I look at data like that, and I'm like, why is that? Because that doesn't make sense with what's in my head. I'd say about half of the cards with him, he's paired with someone else. So that at least made me feel good, right? Because the way I do it is if a card has 8 characters, each of those characters gets a tick mark in their box, right? Because they're all represented there. So there are a lot. So Jean Grey is my number 2. Obviously, because of their relationship, there are a lot of her cards that he's kind of hanging out in the background. And Ian, I know you like, for example, with Black Cat, you like her to be the only one on the card. I agree with that. Sometimes I get very annoyed when I see Scott Summers hiding in the background.
I love it.
Because he's a stalker. He lurks. Exactly. He lurks.
Come on, go to a different card.
He lurks.
He does.
I love it.
Do you? So I've seen over the last 6 months, I guess, I've seen you really focusing on New Mutants specifically with your APs. So for those, I can't assume that everyone knows this who's listening. It's AP is artist proof. So that's the artists who do, let's say for the sake of argument, they do 100 cards that are going to go into the packs, and they might get, I'm just going to pull a number off the top of my head, 10 APs, and they can draw on those what they want within reason. Obviously they're bound by the Marvel license, and they can sell those to whoever they want for however much they charge. So when did you start? Because I get the impression you do an awful lot of AP work, and I barely touch it. I can count on one hand the number I've had.
Yeah, Matt is the sketch artist whisperer in my book. That's what I always think about.
So talk to me about how you discovered that, and how that's gotten to where it is now, and how you approach it.
So similar to sketch cards, my AP journey began in Middle-earth, specifically when Cryptozoic released the 3 Hobbit sets that really pulled me back into Middle-earth. And I had been aware of APs, but because my focus is so much scene-based, and even in Marvel, I think that's where my eye gravitates. It's less about character than about does it recreate some sort of scene that resonates with me. So I always call them scene cards, and that's where a good focus is in Lord of the Rings. So knowing a lot of the artists on Hobbit, I talked to them. A lot of them, off the record, had shared previews of some of their work, and so many of them were portraits. I said, you know what, you really should be doing these scenes. I'm like, well, my card's already done. I'm like, well, what about the APs? So I did a lot of Hobbit commissions that were focused on very specific scenes in the movies. And that really is what started it for me. And then once those were done, I naturally segued into the Marvel APs, especially because, at the time, MM16 was really the first one where I actually bought boxes when they were released. All the Rittenhouse ones were sort of after the fact. and just, mainly buying either, a couple boxes here or there, or just picking up the sketches. So that's really what got me into the APs on Marvel, the opportunity to, get some of those blanks, and especially with Rittenhouse, the oversized blanks. I loved what some of the artists were able to do there. And then even on the recent ones, it's, when MM16 and 18 came out, I did some APs, but not a ton. Premiere 17 was the first one where I was like, okay, this set's been announced. I know it's out. I know from these artists are going to be on it. And I just started, grabbing stuff up front and commissioning a bunch. But really in the last year, probably 2 years, that's when it really started picking up, where based on where I'm focused, it's much more cost efficient to just go directly to the artists. And the fact that, quite honestly, I like working with them and giving them the money directly. I still, don't get me wrong, I like Upper Deck, but my biggest criticism of them is the appalling pay rate. It's very much sort of like that whole low salary tip approach that restaurants in the U.S. take, right? You get sub-minimum wage, but, you'll make it all in tips. And this whole market is, well, you know what? We'll pay you $2 or $3 a sketch card, but hey, like you say, you'll get 1 AP per 10 or 12, and you can make your money there. But we also know that doesn't always work out. So I give a lot of credit to these artists who, put in so much effort on the base cards too, knowing that, for them, it's less about the money than building up their skills. I think Dre has been super eloquent about that. He's doing this. It's about, getting better at what he does and not necessarily a return on investment. So yeah, I think right now I actually have my spreadsheet in front of me. I have 240 open APs right now. Cards, not artists.
So Matt wears glasses. So I want to explain what I'm seeing. So I want to explain what I'm seeing. Matt wears glasses, and he was looking at his computer screen when he said that. And I swear to God, it was like seeing the Ark from Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was just really bright light. And Ian and my face were melting.
My face started melting. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh. 240. I mean, you heard me talking about it, I'm sure. I just did my first one in over 2 years, and it was a delightful experience. But I get quite nervous doing them. I don't know why. I just, yeah. I think all of a sudden it's one of those things. I think I might have said this as well. It's like. So all of a sudden someone turns around and says, well, what do you want it to look like? And I'm like frozen in fear. It's like, I don't know, just make it look good. So I'm very much a, if I see it, I've always been like this. If I see it and I like it, I go for it. Because I'm sure you're like this with X-Men characters. If you see it, but it doesn't quite go, you'll just, you'll let it go by. Unless, of course, it sounds to me like maybe you don't. Maybe you buy everything you see.
I try to do a lot of research on the artist, so I look at their body of work, and based on that and whether I've got any of their cards, I sort of judge, all right, I think you would be good at this, whether it be a character or a concept. There are some artists where I say, character, dealer's choice, because I know I like their style, and I know, unless something goes horribly wrong, I'm really going to like it. Even before my current crazy project, which I'll tell you in a second, the one I did a lot in 2020, which you referenced, was Danny Moonstar and the Demon Bear.
Yes.
And that started because there was one artist, I'm not even sure who was the first one, where I knew I liked their style and I wanted a Danny. And I said, hey, here's a crazy idea. I said, I'll send you the money. Here's what I want you to do. I'll give you 4 words, whatever you come up with. And I said, Danny Moonstar, Demon Bear. and they ran with it, and I loved it, and I ended up doing probably 50 of those throughout the year where I just gave those forewords. And what I loved about it is there were so many different styles, right? There was realistic, there was dramatic, there was comedic, and I'm going to this artist because I like their style, and they have that artistic eye that I just don't have. So I'd rather trust the artist and the process and see what comes up with. And I would say last year I maybe got 2 or 3 where there was something, and it was more just, Nora will tell you, and there are a few of us who have sort of this, I almost don't want to say it because I don't want to infect other people with this approach, but every once in a while you see one tiny little detail, and if you're not careful and you hyper focus on it, it's just done. It's sort of like that Seinfeld episode with the woman who in one light is beautiful and then you see her in the other light and she's hideous. That's the thing. Like, you notice, there's this one pinky finger that's just bent just the wrong way.
Not quite right.
It's like, I can't unsee that now.
Yeah.
It's the worst. But, with so many of these artists, there are very few where I give specific details to. There was one, the last one I can think of, and I didn't have to because of who the artist is, but Mitch Ballard was working on one, and I said, okay, I actually see the concept in my head where I want this. It's an oversized sketch card, and I want Moira from the recent story, the House of X, Powers of X, in the center. I want an X, and I want 3 characters in each of these quadrants. That's the most specific I've been in years about it, and he absolutely killed that, and I'll be able to share that at some point. But other than that, it's like, what? Here's the character, run with it. And especially now, the newest project I have is to take the mutant idea and go even further, where I am creating a spreadsheet of every mutant ever, and I want a sketch card featuring every mutant ever. And right now, my list of mutants, and this is nowhere near complete, I'm up to, on the checklist, just under 600 mutants that exist, and I'm not even halfway there. So this is a multi-year, project. It may never end because they keep adding new mutants every year, so they never catch up, which is fine. It's fun to have something to chase,
Matt is such a baller that he's starting to make his own checklist. I just want that statement to be thrown out there. Well, Matt might, I'm in the same boat as Ian. When I first got into sketch cards, I was doing primarily APs because I couldn't find the character because he was banned. So I was primarily doing APs. And then I had nothing to do with the artist at all. I kept finding something wrong with it, and I would hype it up in my head, and it would finally get to me, and it wouldn't be. It just, I have maybe 2 or 3 APs that are so special to me and so, so amazing that I'm completely in love with them. But otherwise than that, I've like traded them for other surfers or, other surfer collectors that contacted me asking for them and stuff like that. And, I've let them go to get the sketches to pry them out of the hands of other people. But, the thing is that Matt's underplaying here is that Matt probably has the best eye in sketch card collecting that I've ever seen. I've seen Matt's full list. I've seen some of Matt's sketch cards. I grow old by the time I got through them all, and they are all. Matt has a great eye. He has a great eye for archival cuts. He has a great eye for the sketch cards. And I've seen Hobbit, Star Wars. I've seen his other stuff. And his Rick and Morty collection is crazy beautiful. The pieces I keep seeing you throw up are just all clean. Nice pieces. Nice pieces. So I don't want to undersell Matt's eye. But Matt also has a way with artists, man. Like, honestly, it's really amazing what you're doing. I love this collection so much.
Matt, you might have to be the artist whisperer. That could be in the episode title.
I think it has to be honest.
I love it as a concept. I think you're giving me way too much credit. I've always said, as long as you know the artist and know their strengths and play to it, you're going to be happy with what you get. So,
but that in itself is a philosophy that a lot of people just don't necessarily. It sounds simple, but it's one of those things. It's so simple that you kind of don't. I mean, what I did on the AP I did recently was I saw a black cat that the artist had done on a different set. And maybe it's not, I don't know, but maybe I beat myself up too much thinking about it. But I sat there rocking to myself for quite a few hours before I decided, fuck it, I'm going to ask him. And I was like, I'm just going to ask him to recreate that exact black cat, just on a different stock. Because I liked what he'd done there. And I was like, well, I want that. But I can't have that card because it belongs to someone else. So, recreate it for me. And yeah, so, that actually might be the way I go for future APs. Because like I said, if I see it done and I like it, that's fine. But I can't do the whole thing where I have it in my head first. I just can't do that. It just doesn't come to me. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I think I think that's another reason I do lean on the artist. I mean, I'm an accountant by trade, so I am very much a numbers guy. I know what I like. I have a rough idea in my head, but I can't get to that final, okay, I want this specific composition. It's just so rare for me. So yes, I completely understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And I'll also say, and Norton, I appreciate what you said. I'll definitely give a call out to both Jeff Fenwick and F. Booth, who always post, such amazing cards. And F. Booth especially, Fenwick's been doing the Pass the Baton for so long and sharing his amazing cards. But F. Booth recently has really been posting a lot and getting engaged in the community. And I think
he started to open up a little bit.
He's really nice. I've known him for a while now, and we were talking about, I told him what Fenwick was doing and stuff like that. And so he started, not because of me and not because I was talking, but I remember before he started going at it, I was like, dude, you should see these sketch cards that are coming through the group between Matt and Fenwick, between Fuller and Fenwick. It's just insane how amazing, because it's just been great, right? We're seeing characters, we're seeing artists, and things are being shared, and people are getting to be like, oh man, this is crazy. I didn't know sketch cards could be this, right? And I think that's really important. You know what I mean? A lot of times we don't get to define what sketch cards are because, they do go to black holes, which is okay too. And I'm not critiquing that. I'm just saying that for the hobby, I think it is important that we understand the evolution of it. You know what I mean? Instead of missing certain bits and pieces of the history of sketch cards, which I've always admired. But F. Booth was there, and I was telling F. Booth, I was like, man, your shit's good, bro. I think F. Booth was like, and then kind of thought about it and started sharing cards more. But yeah, his stuff is just phenomenal too. I mean,
we should get him on the
is.
show if he'll come.
I'm going to ask him. I think he's more on the quiet side, but I'm happily to ask him. Got to get Fenwick too. Funny enough.
Well, I'd be happy to have either of those two fine fellas. I mean, yeah. F. Booth, if you listen, hello. It's he's been my nemesis since I started in sketch cards, because he was the guy who got the top end black cats when I was actually spending money on trying to get top end black cats. And then I quickly realized I couldn't actually swim in that lane. I was swimming in the fast lane. I was like, nah, you need to move over to the slow lane, big boy, because your credit card's groaning. Took me a few years to realize that wasn't a healthy way to be. Anyway, but yeah, so and when it went back in the Scoundrel days, I was struggling to get them. It's because he always snaffled them up, when K&J Sports Cards were doing their breaks, or whoever else was doing the breaks on Scoundrel. Were you on Scoundrel, Matt? You must have been.
Yes, but I was almost at the time exclusively to the Lord of the Rings subfolders.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably why I didn't see you around. I mean, there's a few people I can remember from those days. I remember the guy who was big into Nova. Was it Dean? Yes, Dean. He was really big into Nova, and I think he's in the groups, and he occasionally posts something. But he had the most incredible character collection of Nova, and it was mind-boggling, the number that he had. And I'm just trying to think who else there were quite a few people who I'm sure that we know now in the world of Facebook being that forum for stuff, who we just don't realise was such and such back in Scoundrel days. But the exception to that is F. Booth, because that's his name on Scoundrel.
Yeah, he's moved it over all the way. He's on Sketch Collectors. He's on all of it.
And I don't know if that's his real name or what, but yeah, he's a or even she. I don't know. I'm assuming it's a fella.
No, it's a he. I know his name.
It's a man of mystery,
and now I can't remember.
Absolute man of mystery.
I can't keep track of it.
And and some, as we touched on, some collectors like to be that. They're just like to keep their dry, as it were. And that, which is absolutely fine. But what I'm loving about MCCW and the pass the baton or baton, you say baton, I say baton. Let's call the whole thing off. Is the fact that it is encouraging people to say, you know what, I can share it. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone pounce on a pass the baton post and say, are you selling it? Can you trade it? Generally speaking, it doesn't happen. I think that's what people were afraid might happen. And it's not happened at all. In fact, I think there's a general appreciation and a respect for those collectors, which is absolutely wonderful to see. Yeah. And there's some newer sketch collectors like Andy Kerr, who's got an amazing great collection.
Stuff. Yeah, Andy's great.
And some others as well. So I've got a lot of time for you. Do you touch anything other than sketch cards? I mean, you used to do autographs.
Occasionally, yes. For Marvel 80th, I went for a full master set, and in my typical OCD fashion, I went in hard, where I got every comic cut, one of every signed comic cut. Made sure I had one of each character on the sketch side, one of each artist on the sketch side, and then all of the base, parallel, and achievements.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, but I've decided I'm not going to do that again for a while. It was great. I'm glad I did it, but especially when you get down to those 105 signed autographs, that I had one that I was chasing for months just to finally get. So that's always a challenge.
A party in Matt's house when that happened, I'm sure. I Marvel 80th is, funnily enough, I went in big on that, and I actually only had the set arrive yesterday, so I've got everything here apart from my comic cuts. I bailed on the signed ones, but the regular ones, I think there's 55 of the regular ones. I think I'm up to 35 now, maybe. Wow. So I kind of feel like I'm over the home straight, and it's the set that I'm the deepest into in terms of actually pushing for completion that I've ever been on any set, weirdly enough. I still don't have a Black Cat on the Black Cat sketch stock, which pains me massively, because I'd really like one of those. But in terms of the sketch, you might be, in terms of the comic cuts, you might know this actually, Matt, so I'm going to ask you. There are two of them in particular that are New Mutants focused, that are held by an EPAC user, and I think their user ID is something that says all mine, not yours, or something like that.
For me, not you.
Yeah, that's right. And I just need one of each of that one for my comic clippings collection. So much so that I've kind of stopped acquiring others, because I'm like, if I can't get those, I'll never have a complete set.
So we can talk offline. I know I have extras of at least one of the two. And if not, I know who that is.
We can talk offline.
Tell you offline. I don't think they would be offended, because they're a super friendly guy. Yeah. So I could make that intro if needed.
Oh, you're a beautiful man. And when we talk to person redacted later, we will. So who knows what will happen? Stay tuned, folks. Sorry, that was just randomly came into my head. I didn't mean to kind of bring that up in the middle of an episode.
Yeah, and I knew exactly what you were going to say, because there are certain roadblocks in there. And on the sketch side, Hellstorm is the roadblock, because there is one guy who collects every single one of them, and I was just lucky that I happened to pack pull one of them that I could keep.
And I know who that is, because that particular fella, because I pulled in my first box of Marvel 80th, I pulled a Hellstorm sketch, and within minutes he'd hit me up, and I don't know if he listens. So I'm gonna
SOS fan. I think he might. I know him as well.
Yeah. He did me a trade, and Norrin, you'll know this. He did me that purple Black Cat
Oh, yes.
Spider-Man, and 2 greens that he mailed to you. And that's how much he wanted this. So he massively
Good for
overpaid.
him.
And even at the time when BlowOut Spider-Man PMG prices hadn't gone nuts, that was incredible.
It's still a lot. I mean, like, but that's how you do it, man. Like, I have mad respect for that. I've never, God, I hope I never, but I know the next Fantastic Four set, something with Surfer, I might lose my shit. But I really, really hope I don't. I don't want to be that. I can't do it. It's I'm like so stressed out by the possibility of me being like tempted to do that kind of master set thing. But I'm very much hoping not to. But yeah, I remember that. That was a lovely trade, man. But that's how you do it.
It was a lovely trade, you know.
That's how you lock it down.
But that's the thing about character collectors is character collectors. Not all of them will do so, but some people will make a character collector overpay because they know they can. I mean, I'm sure you overpaid for something.
Me? No, I'm cheap as hell. I don't tell people my ceiling. No, I'm just kidding. No, I've overpaid on everything. I don't give a shit. Honestly, here's the thing for me, and people always, talk about modern Marvel and how expensive everything is getting very expensive. I am 100% sympathetic and I get it, but you kind of have to pick and choose your battles, man. You know what I mean? I'm not over here trying to collect all the 90 sets and build up master things with master prints and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? I'm not you have to kind of say, okay, that way if the Surfer sketch card comes up that I really want and someone who I've been, asking every 6 months, hey, how's it going? What's going up? And finally they're like, yeah, $600 if you want it. I can't be like, would you do $350? You know what I mean? Because you know what I mean? Like, what kind of ass am I for asking all these years and then going to bargain with the guy? So, you have to pick and choose. You have to put a little money to the side and wait for the good stuff and have faith that it's going to come up.
I mean, you sort of nailed the dark side of character collecting, which is why I'm sort of glad my focus is quote unquote mutants. So I have a broad swath. I see some cards on eBay, an Omega Red, that if it was any other character, it's a fine sketch, but it's a $75 sketch. But that person knows Jonathan exists, and it's up at $300. And you see that sort of, I don't want to say taking advantage because
it's true.
It's same thing. Like I saw, what's the character? Phantom Ghost Rider, that very specific one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you see that on eBay. You see, why is this so expensive? And then you're like, oh, that's right, so and so collects this. It's like, this sucks.
But those people get burned though, man. You know how many people have got APs done for the Surfer, and then no joke, I'm not kidding you, they show it in the group hey, check it out, blah blah blah, it's really cool. And then a couple of weeks later it pops up in my DMs, my messages, and they're like, yo man, I don't know if you saw, I got this really cool sketch, you want it for $700. And I'm there the artist charged you $50. I know that because I know the artist, and I look at the sketch and I always have the best time, and I just text back, I'm like, yeah, it's cool. And that's it. That's all I say. I say, yeah, it's cool. And that's it. I just let it go. It's the best thing in the world.
Like a cat toying with its prey.
Oh, I'm a horrible person. Deep down, I am this terrible person. No, I mean, you have to be, I don't know. That's, for me, though, I don't collect every Silver Surfer sketch card. And I remember talking to Ian about this, and Matt, funny enough. And I won't do that. I won't go down that road. Because that is having that 100% everyone, Matt doesn't have to worry because it's mutants. You know what I mean? Good luck trying to figure out what Matt's, Matt can get anything he wants because he has the eye. He knows the artist. So that's never going to work on him. You know what I mean? And Ian's just as picky as I am. So, I think if anybody goes the whole trying to tease out a character collector, I think it's going to backfire most of the time. You know what I mean? It's just, it's unfortunate, but it really is going to backfire.
Well, my view on that now is if I see something in price jail, as I call it, I'm just like, you know what?
That's a good one.
Leave it there.
I don't want it.
Well, yeah, I am. There's one particular seller on eBay who I won't mention, but who massively overprices stuff, and it's sat there year in, year out. I mean, listen, it's their card. They can do what they want with it. They can poke it up their bum for all I care. But I'm not going to pay that much for it. So, and I'll just wait, and I'll get it somewhere else. So,
the beauty of both EPAX and the group right now too is that trading is the answer to that, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like, and maybe EPAX did it, maybe it's just people getting comfortable in the groups. Like trades, I think, are becoming much, much more common, and I love it. I mean, I've probably traded, well, just with Andy, he and I have done 2 trades of almost 100 cars each.
Oh, I know, I saw.
Done some massive swaps, and I think as long as you're open on it and are realistic about comparative values, trading is just so easy. And it's a good way for those character collectors. Like I traded some Omegas to Jonathan, some Ghost Riders, and I try to do that. And I think everyone in the group has been great about not going crazy in terms of their value. There's only one person I've ever run into there's one who grossly overvalues theirs even in terms of trade and just won't budge. So they overvalue theirs and undervalue yours. And there's just one person in the group who just lowballs everything.
We'll talk about them. We'll talk about them off air.
Other than those 2 examples, the group has just been phenomenal. And it's all about, you know what? I like this card, you like that card. And even for me, there was one trade. I looked on eBay. Okay, I could maybe, based on comps, get $100 for this. The card you're offering looks like it's on 60 for eBay, but you know what? I like it. You like this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get crazy over an unrealized loss on paper, right? Oh, I could have sold that for. Yeah, I could have, but it would have been a hassle, and then maybe you wouldn't have sold it to me for cash. If I'm getting what I want and you're getting what you want, that's all that matters to me.
100%. But that's what you do, right? I mean, and we're very lucky. We're very, like, we joke around about there being problems in the groups here and there and like little dramas and spats or whatever. But we're really lucky, man, because there's a lot of good people and we're surrounded by good people. Like I keep the same 10 to 15 people around me constantly and always go to them first for anything because it's
going to be you rolling down the hallway with everyone kind of fanned out behind you. That Reservoir Dogs music plays.
No, but like, but that's what you do. You find your peeps. You know what I mean? I think the group's really good about everyone very much always tries to help people in the group and be good to everybody else. I feel, we're really lucky. I think if we found a good group of people for sure. Well,
this is a nice point to segue slightly. So at the top of the episode, I mentioned that Matt had how long have you been in the groups? I mean, there's only a finite amount of time you could have been in the groups because they didn't exist 3 years ago. So I started the first one on April 2018, and then Masterpieces started a couple of months later, I want to say. So we're coming up 3 years. I don't remember a time before you were around, Matt.
I was probably mid 2019, I want to say, and I was, my first few months I was pretty quiet. It took me a little while to be like, okay, I was still relatively new, even though I had a lot of cards. I would just buy what I liked. I didn't know a lot of the history, so it took me a while. I wanted to make sure I really knew what I was talking about before I opened my mouth, which is weird because I don't do that in the rest of my life. I just ran it.
Neither.
Weirdly, I should do that in the rest of my life, but I don't. I generally no. I'm the opposite. Generally speaking, I probably say too much on Facebook and not enough in real life. So now, you very kindly, when we put up the bat signal, I guess. What's the Marvel equivalent of the bat signal? Is there one?
Spidey. Spidey's got a Spidey signal.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
Okay, but it's a stretch, but I just
I know what you mean.
The Fantastic Four did.
Right? Oh, in the sky. Yes, right. Yeah, with the four. Right. Okay. So there we go. So Johnny, whatever his name is, Johnny Storm, there we go. I was going to say Johnny Blaze, but that's someone else. Goes up in the sky, does the 4 in the sky, and we needed some, because it's just Norrin and I, and then we had Tommy and Kevin come in, and we were just like, there's so many people in the group. We're like, okay, who else wants to come in and help, join as a moderator in the group? And Matt put his hand up and said, how long would it take roughly per day? Trying to suss out what was going on, and I kind of explained. And duck to water, I would say. How have you ever done that before in terms of community management in any sort of forum online, Facebook or otherwise?
Not online, part of, I have always, like I said, I'm an accountant by trade, but I have always worked in small companies. So HR has always sort of fallen on me. So I've sort of had to pick up that negotiation tactic and sort of talking people off ledges. So I think that has served me well, but no, never sort of in a forum. And even, Scoundrel and BlowOut were really the only two forums before that. And, Scoundrel was at the end of its life there, where it was just, lots of gatekeeping and people yelling and I know best. So this was a refreshing change of pace.
So how have you find it kind of peeping behind the curtain and seeing some of the, we haven't had many, we've had a few kind of small fires to put out, I guess, for various reasons, because not everyone gets along all the time, and sometimes people do bad shit. We've had a couple of people, we've had one fellow who took some money from people and never sent them their cards and, disappeared, which happens, unfortunately. It's the only time it's happened in our groups. How have you found it, just generally seeing?
I think it's been a great experience. What I was most worried about going in was gatekeeping, because I think that's the most challenging aspect to deal with in a group. And we are, let's be honest, we're a very male-dominated hobby. So I was worried that we might have issues there, but thankfully I have not seen one instance. I think this has been, partially because I think we're very careful in curating and with the questions. So I have never run into an instance of that. I think I've only seen one instance where somebody was reported just for a word they used. So I no real issues there. Like you said, a lot of it's people management, and it's sort of internet fights, and trying to get ahead of those and to make sure we're listening to all sides of a story. It is challenging because I think people treat us as if we're these, customer service managers. They sort of expect the same for us that they expect from James and the community service reps at Upper Deck. And it's like, yes, but they're paid, right? We're doing this as a favor to our fellow community members. And the good news is I think most people get that. Every once in a while, I think people are a little pushy around that. But, I've been pleasantly surprised in terms of when people have had disagreements that at least on the surface, they're always at the end saying, okay, I understand. People have apologized to each other. I've only seen a few instances where people have just flat out said, this is crazy, I'm out of here. So yeah, I think overall it's been great. I think the biggest problem we've had is just sales posts and just the drama that comes around a lot of those, I didn't have time to get the t-shirt made, but I was going to say PM for prices. That's the bane of our existence right now. And you nailed it, which is exactly, a lot of people are like, well, this is a stupid rule that nobody else has. Well, yes. And here's why. And it's because, look, every once in a while there is a bad apple. Take advantage. And our goal is, we want to assume that won't happen, but these rules are there so that A, buyers and sellers won't get ripped off, and B, more honestly for the sellers to make sure that they're not preyed upon. When someone comes and says, hey, I've got this card, what's it worth? The three of us know by the time that hits the 2-minute mark, they've got 10 PMs.
Yes.
With offers, right? And again, it's not everyone, but there are 100% some members who they know it's a $300 card and they're going to send a $25 offer to try and get
Oh,
the person
yeah,
on.
of course. No, and like 100%. I was in the Star Wars group to get that sketch that I showed you, Matt. You know what I mean? And like, that went up, and everybody was like, "What?" and jammed and ran to the guy and PM'd him, and I was guilty of it too. Of course, PMing him, be like, "Hey, what do you think? What do you want to do for it, or whatever?" It wasn't a price post; it was just that he pulled it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you need that kind of rule because here's the thing, right? The seller is the person that needs to do the research and put a price on it. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing that always happens, right? They don't know what it costs, and then they're going to get taken advantage of. And the sad part is that, if the other person comes out and they're like, well, do you want 150 for it? And the person's like, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, it's a good day for the seller, bad day for the buyer, bad day for the seller, good day for the buyer. You know what I mean? But then you have the issue of also like price wars, right? PM me the price. And then all of a sudden a price is being shopped around to the collectors. Yeah, you want to give me 5, but this guy says 8. And then who knows if they're being honest, and then it goes back and forth. And then something that was like $500 on eBay is now turning into a $1,500 piece.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's horrible. I do think PM for the price, and there are deals that I always want to keep secret because, I don't want, I like to get a deal on something sometimes too, and I don't want to, you know what I mean, pay full price if someone doesn't want full price, and I can be honest, you know what I mean? That's honest, but it's good Facebook practice to do PM. You know what I mean? It's just you have to know what you're selling. You have to list. You have to do the research. You know what I mean? You just have to.
And there are definitely some of those sellers who post valuation prices that are just they know what it's worth, and they're fishing for someone who will overpay. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, the interesting thing, it's always been from day one. I was like, you can't be PMing to do deals. You've got to keep them on comments. Because the other thing as well is when there's multiple people after a rare or one-of-one item, you don't know who's got it, which is why I say keep it on comments. Then you can see the timestamp of the comments. If someone claims it and then someone else claims it 30 seconds later, it's very easy to see who was first. And you also know it's sold, rather than disappearing. But I actually took that because it's kind of talking about changing collecting journeys. I'm about to step off this train, but I'm surrounded by retro video games. That was the kind of thing. I was basically trying to do too much and collect too much, and now I'm focused on the cards. So I'm going to be parting with the majority of my retro video game collection. Now, retro video games, there are some very rare games, but none of them are one-of-ones. But there are some games where there are maybe only, I think there's a Lakers versus Celtics, an Electronic Arts game for the Sega Mega Drive, which is one that you need for the full master set of PAL Sega Mega Drive, you called it Genesis, set, which is over 500 games. Now, on Sega Mega Drive, I got up to about 300 titles, so I was getting pretty spicy, I was getting close to it. But, all the ones left were the really difficult ones or the really rare ones. Anyway, in all the retro video game groups, and especially the Sega, what was it called? Galaxy Sega, that's right. So I'm still in it, but I don't post there anymore, and I'm not even looking at their posts on Facebook because it's kind of, I'm done now. I've had that little go, and I'm on cards now. But if anyone PM'd or there was any suggestion of it, they would boot immediately both the seller and the buyer. Gone from the group. So we're pretty lenient on that in that regard. In that it's there. I mean, I think I've maybe booted 2 or 3 people. Over the time that the group's been on. In fact, sometimes I just get a bit pissed off and I'm like, F it, you just clearly did a PM deal. So you're gone, you're out of here because I'll be having a bad day at the office. But people query it after, quite often. And it's like, well, this is kind of this is the way it is. This is, although it is a big community, it's not a democracy. These are the rules and they're not changing. I guess that must be the most difficult thing. It's like, okay, this is the way it runs. It runs that way for a reason, because it's kind of fair to everyone. It's as open as it can be. It offers a little bit of protection in case someone does do a naughty on someone, but also, it's open, and people seem to respect that, I find.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think most people do. I mean, we have one or two people we've sort of got our the hairy eyeball on. I think we suspect
hairy eyeball.
I love that.
And the other one that's the bane of my existence that I haven't seen in a while is, I'm interested, right? No. You're either claiming it or you're not, right? Interested.
Oh, that's shady.
Interested. Yeah. If you
it's like, so just kind of getting that common language for everyone. It's like, no, if you want it, say claimed.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
That's not cool, man. I haven't seen that. That's horrible.
Oh, yeah. No, we had an instance where someone thought they claimed it because they said that, and they clearly that doesn't indicate that you want the item.
At all.
I'm interested.
What the hell's that
in
shit?
Cindy Crawford circa 1994 doesn't mean to say I'm ever going to, that's ever going to happen for me. But does, yeah.
Wow.
So,
no way.
Fun stuff. But yeah, on the whole, I think the moderation has been a very positive experience. Even when people have come with issues, I think everyone's been very respectful. I think there have been some times where people wanted, had an issue and wanted us to see it their way, and maybe we didn't. And I think in most cases, people understand that and, don't think it's, no one takes it personally as far as I can see. It's, we try to, we make the best decisions we can based on the circumstances and, how we interpret it and what the group rules are. And, we can't always make everyone happy, but the goal is to keep the community healthy. And it seems like it's been working well 2+ years now.
Well, I think so. One thing I do find, I don't know about you, Norrin, is because obviously we do the podcast and, people see us posting and, we're in the groups. I often find I have to kind of arm's length a little bit sometimes because of the volume of people that I'll wake up some mornings and I've got between 8 and 12 PMs from people asking stuff and asking me, which is fine. I'm absolutely happy to help, but at a certain point it comes, I've actually got to do stuff. I've got life. I've got a wife, got a family. You got to spend some time doing that. So sometimes it can be overwhelming, and so I'm grateful that you're with us on that team because it kind of shares that a little bit for people, and it gives us the opportunity to not be overwhelmed by it. It's great. I love that we've done the group, and it's not it beats hot mopping. I'm not complaining on that front. I chose to start the group, and Norrin chose to come in with me and double down on it all. So.
You paid. But it's wait. What? What are we talking about here? No, just kidding.
Did that?
I'm very grateful you brought me on.
That check.
The third party out of state check.
Yeah. I lost it.
But thank you, Matt. I literally couldn't do it without you and the other guys. So,
happy to help. Really enjoy it.
Yeah. Can we talk about our intro artist?
Absolutely.
Before we started, I showed, and I need to get some more of these. So any artists listening, and in fact, Matt, I'm going to hit you up afterwards for some contacts because I know you're in touch with an awful lot of people. Our intro, Matt's run away to get something. I know what he's getting. I showed Matt a list of all the artist intro files we have, the audio files, and he went down the list and he was like, right, yeah, that young fella, I've got a few things in the works with him right now. So, and this young man was intro artist way back on episode 32, but he was kind of just getting in the game at that point. But he has now kind of established himself as very much collective favourite, and his work is amazing. And it's improved so much since I last kind of eyeballed it. So MARLO Martos, or Marlo _Lopez _Martos on Instagram. It'll all be in the tasting notes. is this week's intro artist, and I'm scrolling down his Instagram feed, and I can see one card there that I'm pretty sure is probably yours, Matt, because it's a magic, and is that the bear behind her? Yes, I think you've probably acquired that, even if. So tell me of your current journey with this young fine fella.
So Marlo has done already quite a few APs for me, as well as some of the pack pulls. And what really, first of all, his art is just top shelf. So that alone would have made him a favorite. But what I'll show you here is he goes so far above and beyond to delight his customer. So when he sent me my first round of APs, there were some Marvel Premiere APs, he creates a custom box to put them in.
Wow.
And on the front, he has the pencil work in progress. On the back, he has the ink work in process, and he packages the sketch card inside of here. And again, it's just, when you open that, it just changes the experience. And this one in particular, it's a 2-part AP, and he designed it in such a way so that whichever way you line them up, the little details sync up on both ends.
Oh wow!
So it's continuous either way. Yeah,
like a sketch palindrome. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy hell!
Again, just such little.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Smart
Yeah,
man.
I had niche. Believe me, I did not ask for it, and it was there, and I couldn't believe it. Worked wonderfully. Yep,
That's
and
inspired.
I want to say, let's see, he's working on several for me right now. Let's go to the checklist. Marlo. Wow. So there are some people who, I know one complaint I did get, but it's personally to me and not to the group, is I do get a lot of APs from people. So Marlo is actually working on 13 APs for me right now across 1, 2, 3, 4 sets. And I know some people say, you should let them share their APs, and sorry, I'm a greedy pig. What can I say? I love the guy's work. So yes, I think all in all, once these are done, I'll have well over 20 from Marlo. He's been a revelation for one of the newer artists. So.
Wow.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I've got one by him. He sent me a black cap that he'd just done as part of his kind of submission to Upper Deck to get the gig.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Yeah, so it's not actually on official stock. It's just kind of on a thin card, and it's slightly taller than a regular trading card, so it doesn't quite fit in the pocket. And he sent that to me way back when I think I've shown it to you, Norrin.
I think you have. I'm trying to remember it.
Tasting. Well, you know what? Any excuse to open my case. This is always Norrin's favourite part of the show. So I'm going in, people. I've got to remember which one's which. I should mark them, actually. Is this one?
Did you hear how annoying that was, Matt? Did you hear the briefcase?
He loves it.
Yeah, right.
He loves it.
That's a satisfying click right there.
It is a satisfying click. And what I want to do is get one of those big ass lamps in there, like they do in fiction.
Those submission cards can actually be very collectible over time. I ended up not grabbing it myself, but Norrin, you've been into Star Wars, so you may be familiar with artist Len Bellinger. He's a wild, popular contemporary artist. It's doing gallery shows all the time in New York, and he did a lot of Lord of the Rings and Star Wars art, and his just submission cards are in the $500-$600 just to get one of those.
Wow.
So it's actually on quite thin paper.
I had no idea. Wow, that's cool.
Nice.
And you can see how thin it is when you see the inks coming through on the back.
Wow.
But yeah, there's just a little note. Here's a little something to add to your collection. Your friend from the Philippines.
Oh.
Which is just on a separate piece of paper that I'll just keep behind it. So Marlo, thank you from me for that. Thank you from Matt, clearly, for the work. Well, he should be thanking you, I guess, because you're keeping him in tea and biscuits for the foreseeable future. So
tea and biscuits.
So yeah. Well, whatever he has.
I love it.
Snacks.
No, I love it. I love
it. Maybe he doesn't have tea and biscuits. Do you want to see me open something, fellas? Do you want to see me open something?
Boy.
So
I've been fooled before. What specifically are you opening?
I'm sat down, so it's not my fly. It's I got this poster tube this week, which has been a long time coming. Actually, it was mailed on the 16th of February, and it arrived 3 days ago. And it is from Dimitris Patelis. Dimitri Patelis, rather. Who is he? I hear you cry. Well, if you don't know who he is, he's one of the 4 artists. And hey, Norrin's like snap. So I have a feeling Norrin's got the same item as me. Dimitri very, very, very kindly on MMC Marvel Masterpiece Collectors at the end of the last year, when everyone's had a really crap year. I'm going to do a giveaway, 10 people, and I'll send a print of one of my I believe they're Masterpieces 95 paintings. I'll send a print of those, and so of course loads of people said yes, and at the end of it Dimitri said, you know what, I'm going to give away a lot more, and he did this off his own coin. He didn't have to do it. So what I have here is it's absolutely stunning. It's huge as well. And I'll put a picture of this up on the tasting notes. I went for, and he offered 10 characters. I went for the Silver Surfer.
No way.
I got it, and I was like, you know what? At the very, and you've got one as well. Marvelous. Okay.
Omega, our boy Omega sent it to me.
Both of us did it for the same reason. I think both of us were like, "Oh, let's get it for Norrin," and one of us will win. And of course, we both won. But he signed the bottom of it. But I don't actually have a Surfer piece at all.
It's lovely.
I have no artwork by Surfer. If that's the first and last artwork I get for Silver Surfer, I'm a happy man.
It's sick, man. I think it's such a good piece.
It's beautiful.
Such a good piece, and they look great.
Yeah,
you signed them, right?
At the bottom. So, Dimitri, thank you. That's so absolutely nice. Amazing. A picture of that will be on the tasting notes. And Matt, you've done a few giveaways in the group as well. You had a bit of philanthropy recently. What's this? So many days of was it Curtis? You said.
Yep, the 12 Days of Curtis.
Right.
Curtis was a collector back from the Scoundrel days. He was 501 Blues. He passed away in 2016, I believe. And then in late 2019, I was introduced to his mother, who was looking to sell his collection. So I took that on and was doing, I did that over close to a year. Yep. Norrin ended up with one of the blob cards that was from his collection. Yep. And then one of the things she sent me as a thank you was a set of oversized sketches that were by Tony Perna, some prelims that he had done. Yeah. Pencil for some of his artwork. So I thought, rather than keep those for myself, it would be nice as a sort of memorial to Curtis to give those away. So we did various, random drawings. I think we did a haiku contest. Tried to keep it interesting, rather than just, post a reply and I'll do a random drawing. So.
Mate,
definitely. I love it that you did that so much, man. You have no idea.
I have to say the haiku one I absolutely loved, and I've got mine saved here. I'm going to find it, and I'm I won't lie to you. I'm a little bit upset that that this one didn't win. I'm kidding, of course. I say I've got it. I can't actually find it now. My phone
that full contest. I can't believe that.
Yeah, let me just have a look. I'm trying to remember it. Here we go. Right, so this one's called. This was my haiku. My Felicia, why sultry dressed on rooftops? You'll catch your death, dear. I thought that was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem when you open it up to the masses.
I know.
There's no accounting.
Opinions get thrown out there.
I know. But no, thank you for doing that. We've got a wonderful thing going on at the moment where people have started to do paid forward posts as well, where they've started to do giveaways, and within 5 days of that, they need to do their own giveaway. So it kind of keeps it going. And I think Peggy Pinette started that one. What are you getting there, Norrin?
That's right.
What are you getting?
Oh, I had to get the blob out, and I'm putting the blob back in where it was blogging. My mistake.
Okay, and the sketch?
I was trying to do it on the DL, huh?
And the sketch?
The sketch is here. I was showing Matt.
I think that went completely over his
head. What did I do? Sorry, I wasn't.
You were talking about getting your blob out, but
wow.
Yeah, I went there. I went there.
I don't know why I doubted that would be where we go, but here we are.
No, fair enough.
I would have been disappointed if we hadn't gotten there.
No,
very true.
We definitely do go there. Matt Fuller, you're an incredible individual. Thank you for agreeing to come on and just chat about your collection. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've got anything left to ask or say or overshare.
Or overshare, I love it.
I'll have to offline. I'll share you my own Black Cat collection.
I was just looking. It wept.
I have a few. So
I know.
I have a few.
I've seen them wept. Anytime, any one of your cast-offs, sir, I'd be happy to give a home to. Ian's Home for Stray Cats. But yeah,
that's what you should call your collection.
Actually,
it's actually pretty good.
That's not bad.
That's a good one. Yeah. I like it.
I'll work on that one. Matt Fuller, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, brother.
You know what we say? We know what we say at the end of one of these things?
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy collecting.
Thanks for listening to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast. Visuals and tasting notes for each episode can be found on our Facebook page. You can subscribe and leave us a voicemail via our home on anchor.fm/MCCP. We're also on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Please take a second to subscribe, like, and review our show wherever you get your podcasts. Our podcast can be found by Googling @the MCC Pod, which will also find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Our Facebook community is at MCCW, Marvel Card Collectors Worldwide, and MMC, Marvel Masterpieces Collectors. The great music we use is called Rocket Power by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks to the collectors, artists, and creators who support the Marvel Cards Fan Collective. We'll see you next time, and remember, it's a small hobby but a fun one. Make mine Marvel and enjoy collecting.